What's up guys, KKaceh here. We're nearing the end of major version 2.x. We're entering major version 3.0 very soon for Honkai Star Rail. So I just thought that I think it's a good time for us to actually evaluate the enemies that we have encountered over the past 2 years in Honkai Star Rail and see if how well designed they are. So I've made a couple of tier here. Excellent, well thought out, balanced, broken, and underwhelming. I will try to explain my judging criteria, I suppose. I will try to think how many gimmicks do they have, and then how many move sets do they actually have, and then see whether their playstyle, I would say, is well thought out, and see if any of them seems unfair. You will see when we talk about some of the enemies later, and see whether they're just interesting bosses in general in terms of looks. So to explain each of this category, the excellent design here, I decided to put this as a tier because they are fun to fight, they have lots of movesets, their gimmicks are interesting, and they're also fair. And then well thought out, I would say they have lots of movesets. They look nice, they're somewhat fun to play against, and they are fair. They're somewhat fair to fight as well. Balance, I think they're just fine to fight against. They have a couple of movesets. They're neither fair or unfair, they're just there, I suppose. For these two tiers, I'm putting broken on top of underwhelming, but it doesn't mean that broken is just better than underwhelming. It is just a category trying to say the gameplay seems unfair and it's very easy to get snowballed if one mistake was made, which is why I put them in broken. And unless you might end up using a very specific, very specific setups, you will have a hard time fighting this particular enemy. That's what I would classify as like broken enemy design, I suppose. The underwhelming is just that they seem so basic. They're not that much different from all of these mobs enemies down here, which they're just like bigger and slightly stronger than these mobs. And also it could be, despite there being a boss, it feels like they could have done more with their movesets, for example, or even designs, which is why I will put some of the enemies in underwhelming category. Before we start, bear in mind that this tier list most likely will be biased. I will try to give my justification and reason, but ultimately it will be quite subjective. So if you're interested, make one yourself, or just write in the comment section where do you think that specific enemy should be. And also, we're not gonna evaluate any of the mobs because they're so basic and simple. They have a very few movesets and they just die fast compared to the elite enemies, bosses, and the weekly bosses. So let's get started. I guess the best enemy that we should evaluate is this guy. I made a guide specifically just for this guy because I don't think any other bosses actually needs a guide to be defeated. And if you see the comment sections in my video, you could tell that so many people struggle against this boss, just this boss. Any other bosses prior, there might be a few that can give a bit of trouble, but they're not as bad as this guy. So where I'm going to put Aventurine, most likely here. Let me try to explain why. First, the RNG system sucks. When you start dealing with the dice, there are a chance that you even use AoE attacks, try to get all 4 dices during his second phase of dice roll. There are a chance that even you might get 1, 1, 1, 1. So you roll 4 ones and you get pretty much effed up. And from there, he's just gonna snowball, you're gonna get stunned, and then he's gonna use the coin toss to just one-shot some characters because it's a multi-hitting attack. He is the only enemy that gives big problem to most of Honkai Star Rail players. So, which is why I'll put him in broken right now. As we evaluate more bosses, we shall see if he can be moved somewhere else, at least based on my first evaluation. I think that he is a pretty broken enemies. I'm gonna try to put at least one enemy on each category, and from there we can have some kind of standard to measure the rest of the enemies. Oh yeah, before I forget to mention, I will not take the apocalyptic shadow version of the bosses into consideration because their movesets are somewhat different from the rest of the modes. Let's moving on. Let's try to filling in the underwhelming section first. I'm thinking it's going to be Cyrus. He is a boss, but we don't exactly fight him. We're just basically fighting a bunch of mobs, and mostly the way we fight Cyrus is just that he's gonna fast forward a bunch of mobs, and at some modes they will give these mobs buffs. That's pretty much it does. I wish that Cyrus did something more than just that, which is why I put him in underwhelming section. And then let's fill in a few more. I think I'm gonna pick this guy. At first, he seems like a very tough boss, but as you play more, he has a lot going on with this fight, which is why I kind of like it. So yeah, it's between these two. But I'm inclined to actually put him here. The mechanic of quote-unquote instant death was quite cool. It's very similar to Svarog's arm lock, what do you call that? Taking prisoner with the arm or something like that. But the difference is that with Svarog, something unto death, you can control who will be the one that takes the instant death. So you have more control over the fights. And at the same time, the way you release the instant death is just trying to hit it as many times as possible, which is quite different from Svarog's. So it's a bit more fair, even though you don't bring anyone that actually can break the weakness of the, what do you call it, prison, I guess. And also, it is quite fair that he gave us full energy when you fight him, or when you fight it. And that way, you can actually preemptively use your buffers in using their ultimate, so that after that, they can be the one that will fall for the instant death. Not to mention, this boss is pretty cool. The first time I fought it in the story, it was pretty menacing. I was like, this is a crazy enemy design, and I really love how this enemy looks. I wish it appears more in challenges, because it's such a fun fight, in my opinion. At least for me, I had a lot of fun. And then the next one, I would reckon let's pick somewhere in balance category. I was thinking the Guardian. This is a very fair enemy, I would say. Depending on what ban it gives us, it can either punish us if we go against the ban. She can deal quite a bit of damage if we choose to go against the ban. But if you want to play safe, you can play safe. Try to not to go against the ban, I would say. And then the other one also, I think there's a ban that prevents you from attacking her. And if you do, you get hit. So the mechanics is very fair, that they give you chances that, okay, if you go against the rules, you get punished. But if you want to be safe, just don't do anything. And this boss tends to not hit quite hard, since I think its main attack is only the lightning attack. So I think it is a very balanced boss. And then let's see, let's put someone in well thought out. I'm thinking towards, for well thought out, I think I will put KKaceh. She's technically one of the harder bosses that we first encountered. She has 2 vases. She deals a lot of status effects on us. She uses summons, but she's not too difficult, but still pretty challenging if you're not careful, especially the first time you fight her. Her movesets are quite a bit, And then especially with the meteor crush, where when wildfire starts playing, it's a pretty strong attack, but it is still fair since that it requires charging, and you can prevent Cocolia from actually using it by breaking her weakness. So yeah, this is a very well thought out boss. You need to bring the right team to prevent her from dealing tons of damage on us. Not to mention, she looks amazing. She looks very cool. So I would say Cocolia deserves a well thought out tier. Not close to excellent, because she could do more when it comes to her movesets, and if that's the case, and a little bit more gimmick, if that's the case, she probably would go up here. But no, she will be here for now. Alright, we still have a lot to deal with, about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 40 more enemies here, so let's try to speed along. And I'm gonna pick from my favorites first. Sam. He's the first boss that actually kind of shut down one playstyle. If you bring healer in his fight, most likely you will have trouble because healer's capability in healing are reduced thanks to the flame armor thing. And also, when he doesn't use his flame armor, you cannot break his toughness, so you need to turtle up a little bit and be patient. But the moment he uses the flame armor or the combustion, restart the combustion, that's when his offense will go up quite a bit, and it becomes very dangerous if you're not careful, especially if you don't have shielders. But the mechanic is that as long as you use as many skill points as possible, you can shut down his combustion phase or just break him before he kills you. And if you manage to stop his combustion, he will be in a very vulnerable state. So yeah, you will have a period of that you will have a very tough time trying to stop his combustion. But after you manage to get him out of the combustion state, that's where you have a chance to actually go all out and deal as much damage as possible. Not to mention, he has multiple movesets, which I really like. He has a single target, punch, and he has a 3 target super move. I think it's 3 target? I don't know, it's full team. I think it's 3 target attack, where he turns to meteor. And then he has the lag explosion, I think that hits 3 people. And then he has super single target laser punch that was added in the Simultaneous universe, I think, and it become one of his permanent movesets that can kill a single target if you're not careful. He looks amazing, he looks cool. His fight arena changes filled with fire when he enters the combustion state. Very cool, very cinematic, and it's pretty fair. As long as you're being very careful, not being too greedy, being defensive is fine, especially if you have shielders, you should be fine. And it's just a fun fight for me. I don't know if I'm gonna put him above Something Unto Death, because I think he is a bit more fair compared to Sam. If during his first phase right now, you cannot break him or reduce his toughness. So if you bring Super Break Team, you might have a very slow start in dealing damage. So yeah, he's an excellent design, but not as good as Something Unto Death. Let's pick my least favorite enemy in the game. This is very personal. It's this guy right here. I'm gonna put him in broken because it feels like, how to say, you only have like 3 chances of using skill or ultimate. No, I would say 2, because before his whatever mode activates, sanction mode I think activate, and only to do that you need to like hyper focus this robot to break his weakness so that he cannot immediately go to sanction mode and just try to finish him off before he recovers. And he able to gain sanction mode charges during his turn as well. So this boss, the moment it enters sanction mode, things can go out of control very fast. It gets, I think, 2 attacks. First, it summons mobs, which is very annoying. All of the mobs deal AoE, which is this stupid flying fish. And this thing can deal tons of damage during sanction mode with the imprisonment effect as well. And if the RNG goes against you, this thing can one-shot your character very easily. So Technically, you can still deal with it as long as you try to focus on this guy fast, but it has quite a lot of toughness because it's an elite enemy, so you cannot break this robot quite easily. And the moment it enters sanction mode, things can get out of control and just snowball against your favor. So I wish the sanction mode activates in like 4 to 5 attacks instead of 3 attacks. It's too short, so which is why I think this enemy is kind of broken, not exactly fair. Next up, we have trying to find underwhelming enemy. I think this guy here. This is a very underwhelming enemy compared to this one. It has a very basic attack, just a trample, and then it can drop a block or something like that that deals quantum damage, that has a chance to get you the quantum status effect. I don't remember what it's called. And it will target one character. If you get hit by that shot, there's a chance that you might get the quantum status effect, which you can prevent by just breaking its weakness. There's no anything specific, there's no specific gimmicks, just break him when it starts to locking on someone. Very straightforward, nothing too crazy. That's why I put this enemy into underwhelming category, because it's not better than this one. And speaking of this one, the wind version, I think it's more towards balance. It has some similar moves to this one. It will lock out a certain characters that is inflicted with dots or wind shear, but if you manage to dispel the wind shear, this thing will just whiffs, which is kind of funny to see. And it is also able to summon the wind bat, this one, as a backup to make the fight a bit more challenging, I suppose. If you give him too many turns, because this enemy has a pattern of attacks that each turn they will do certain actions. If you manage to disrupt the cycle, it will go back to the first pattern again. So this one is just a better version of this. It has more stuff, it has gimmicks, and it's more interesting. That's why I just kind of want to put this one in balance. Next up, I'm gonna put Doomsday Beast. Okay, let's start with Doomsday Beast. It is a very nice first big boss, I would say. It looks very cool. It doesn't have a crazy mechanics, but it does show the game that the bosses will have multiple phases at which their attack patterns will be different on each phase, which serves as a good, I would say, introduction to Honkai Star Rail turn-based bosses. It's not too difficult. You won't be able to be snowballed by this boss most of the time, I think, unless you really have no clue on how to play. It's just a good boss, I guess. No specific gimmicks. It does show it has a charging attack, but I don't think we can interrupt its charging attack on the second phase, unlike Aglaea, where you can disrupt her. But this boss, I think, even though you break the weakness of all 3 parts, the 2 hands and also the core, it will still do the big lasers. I don't know if the power is reduced though. I will have to look into that. If you guys know, do let me know about it in the comment section. Okay, so yeah, basically this boss is just a balance. I don't think it's better than this two. This two has more gimmicks that is more interactive and more interesting compared to this one. It's just a nice enemy. Alright, next up, I'm gonna put another one of my hated enemy. This one. The Disciple Maiden, or whatever you call this enemy is. This one is a very annoying enemy. Why is that the case? First, it has bouncing attacks that will hit random allies, and it can get pretty bad once it's comboed with her other kit. She will be able to sap your maximum HP, like what Panthelia does. On top of that, she can apply tons of wind shear on your characters. If you have no cleanse, get ready to be destroyed by this boss. It is very annoying, especially things can get out of control quite fast when you're fighting her with another elite enemies. She can reduce your survival chance for quite a bit. If she's managed to sap your HP and then stacks lots of wind shears while you're thinking that, oh, I should focus on the other elite enemy instead of this one. For example, these two are terrible combination to fight against. So you need to take your poison. You either want to deal with the lots of status debuffs and dots, or you want to take a risk of getting destroyed by this automaton. So this is just a very annoying enemy to fight against. If you have no clans, get ready to be destroyed, and things can get out of control and snowball against our favor very easily. I wish that the wind shear doesn't hit multiple targets. If that's the case, it would be a lot more fair. But giving wind shear to almost all of your characters, I don't know if it's full team or it's like three units, but it's just a very annoying boss to deal with, and it's not fun, it's not fair either. Next up, I'm gonna put a more recent boss, this guy, Septimus. He has a very fun boss. He has 3 phases, and each phase is placed differently. The first phase is similar to second phase, but the first phase you just need to make sure you destroy all the weaknesses of all the small angels around the Septimus, so it cannot use its powerful attack on first and second phase. And it has multiple shields. It is a new gimmick that is being introduced in this fight. It has multiple attacks. It can put us into sleep. It has AoE attacks. It has single attack target. And then the second phase, it can also gives itself similar to Jeopard's shield, that you need multi-hitting attack, I think, for you to be able to efficiently destroy the shield. And then the third phase, it has very unique mechanics at which you just need to destroy the shield as much as possible before 7 turns before you start using the big bang attack. I forgot what's it called when it just touches the fingers. It looks pretty cool, very menacing, very Final Fantasy 13 like in a sense, and pretty much a fun fight in my opinion. Well thought out, but I don't think it's excellent because it's on the easier side. It doesn't give us that much challenge compared to the one above, like these two. But I think it's still more challenging than Cocolia, so I put Septimus and Well Thought and above Cocolia here. Next up, I think it's Varrock. Honestly speaking, I like his fight a lot. He has a lot of moveset. He has defense reduction beam. He has a punch. He has a whole AoE missiles. It can deal tons of damage, but at the same time, it can give us lots of energy as well. So it is pretty devastating attack, but also can be beneficial for us. He also able to summon minions to help him fight. In the first phase, we have the robots, the tiny robots, these two, or even this one. So it is pretty, you need to be careful so that these guys don't mess around with you. And in the second phase, it can summon another big robots, which I think is this one and this one, if I'm not mistaken. The moveset will be still similar on the second phase, but on the third phase, it will be able to summon the hand, right here, stupid hand. This hand is able to take control, or rather imprison your characters, and they cannot act, and they will take damage every single turn during the hand's turn. So you need to be careful, bring the right elements against Varrock so that you can free your teammates from the imprisonment. And also, if things doesn't go towards his favor, if his HP is towards the end, the lower end, or the hand is almost defeated, it will forces the hand to self-destruct and deal tons of damage to us. So there's some race involved, but if you manage to play it well, you will be just fine against Varrock. But what's good is that on the third phase, even though it's quite difficult, there's a fair chance that you're able to stop his gimmick. For example, if you don't want the hand to do anything against your teammates, you can just try to focus on Varrock. Try to break him as soon as possible, because the hand cannot move if Varrock is broken. So there's still some fighting chance. I put him excellent design because his fight can be complex and requires a little bit of strategy and decision making on what you should focus, but it still gives you a good fighting chance, and he's still pretty challenging. But I don't think he's better than Sam and Something Unto Death. Next up, I think will be these two. the two elementals. They are pretty fine bosses, pretty challenging if you're not careful. It has a set pattern. It will do basic attack first and then charge itself. And then if you don't try to break them as soon as possible, things can get out of control. The fire one can deal tons of damage if it manages to charge itself twice. And the ice one has a very big chance to freeze us. And that thing can really jeopardize our fight. Things can get out of control if you're not careful with this too. But the good thing is that it is very easy to break their weakness, their toughness bar, and they will reset back to their original pattern. So these two are fine elite enemies, not too crazy, but still has quite interesting gimmicks to them. They're not better than these two, but I think they're better than Doomsday Beast. Doomsday Beast is a bit too basic. Next up, the dinosaur. I'm gonna put the dinosaurs as well thought out because it has a very interesting gimmick. You have to hit him a certain number of times, I think 7 times, in order for you to activate its dangerous mode. You can try to be safe, try not to attack it at all if you have a single target character. It won't deal that much damage, but the moment it enters the frenzy state, I don't know what state it's called, it will be a lot more dangerous. It can deal tons of damage to us if you're not careful. But if they manage to hit them 7 times again, it will blow itself up, deal tons of damage on itself and 2 enemies next to it, and it will reset back to the normal state where it doesn't deal that much damage. It's just a very interesting enemy design. I think it's very well thought out. The gimmick requires you to be a bit careful on your turn so that you're able to make itself explode before it starts dealing tons of damage during the frenzy state. It's a very well-designed elite boss in my opinion. I want to say that I don't have script on this tier list. I'm just rambling with my thoughts and my feeling, I guess, towards this enemies. So pardon me if I stutter a lot and I kind of repeat myself because I'm not very good with spontaneous content. Especially, I tend to stutter a lot when I speak. Alright, next up, I will pick... Who should I pick here? I think this enemy. It is closer... I don't know which one's worse. I think this guy. Here. Why I hate this enemy? Because in some challenges, it is able to immediately does the elbow attack. It is able to inflict the Daze status effect, the one with the stars, and then it will follow up with the AoE fan attack, and that will guarantee our character to be stunned. So this enemy can destroy us if things get out of control, if you don't put our guard up, and it is also able to deal devastating single target attack if the character is in stun state. So it is very good at picking off our character one by one if you're not careful, especially if you don't have cleanser. I don't think it is balanced because it's very easy to get snowballed by this enemy. This happens to me so many times in a more difficult challenge, especially if it's paired with other annoying elite enemies like these two, and these two tends to appear together and these two tends to appear together. They are a very, very annoying combination to fight against, which is why I kind of want to put this in broken tier list, because some fights, in some challenges, this enemy will guarantee one of our character to be in stun state, and it's not a pleasant thing to see, and it's not fair, to be honest. If it has just one normal attack and start with the elbow and then do the AoE fan attack on the next turn, I think it's more fair. I think that is the basic pattern of this boss, but in permanent challenges like Memory of Chaos and other challenges, they tend to use the more annoying attack pattern. So we have about, what, 28 enemies left? Let's try to get through them.
Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe!